Hey crafty cuties, welcome back to Paper Terrace. Today I'm doing a video that was requested by one of my Patreon members, Cheryl. So thanks so much, Cheryl, because I'm sure many others will enjoy seeing how to make this journal cover specifically using this metal clasp, which is so cute. And now, of course, I got it from Amazon, and I think it came in a 10-pack, so I was really excited that I will have lots of these to play with. I'm going to have the link below. I actually have another metal closure that is similar, and I was considering using, but I wanted to save this one for more of a like medieval or dream kind of journal, but I thought I would just point it out since we're talking about metal closures. This one is also just so cool, but it is pretty big, so with this size of journal, it would take up a good portion, which again, I think it would look cool, but we're gonna stick to this one right here. So let's see, we're going to do this using a cardboard box because I think all of us have one of these laying around. I'm going to keep this pretty simple and just show you the cover. I'm not going to be sewing pages in today for this video. I'm using fabric. Thanks to Lace Covered Skies for sending me a ton of vintage fabrics, but this is the one I'll be using today. And then I have some plain muslin fabric because I like to do a couple layers. And I have my metal closure here along with some brads and a ring fastener. All of these things came from Amazon, so I'll have all of those supplies linked below. And so, like I said, you're gonna need either a box to start with. I'll give you the measurements of mine and everything, so if you're following along with just like plain cardstock or recycled cardboard, you can also make this along with me. So if you can see, I am using the whole box this time, and you'll have to cut this very carefully because you want to keep everything nice and tidy as you can. So I just took basically the top and the bottom off, and then I cut a slit so that we have this extra flap on the back side. Okay, and then I have an extra piece of cardboard here that is the same height. This is 7 1/4, and so it's 7 1/4 by 4.5 inches. I went ahead and just folded it about 1 inch in. I didn't really measure that part. This is going to be the part that is the closure, that, or the flap, I should say. We're gonna go ahead and start by adhering this part, and so I'm going to be using my Tombow Mono Aqua Glue today. I want everything to just be nice and not fragile. I want everything to stick together well, and I know this will work well. Okay, so I'm just going to line this up as best I can, and so I am lining up my fold mark to the very edge of that flap. I hope that makes sense. I didn't cut that super straight, so there's a little bit kind of hanging over, but that's totally fine. It's gonna be fine once it's all covered in fabric. So now you can see that now we have like this extra flap, and of course this isn't completely dry. I'm just gonna give that a nice push there. Okay, so now's the time that you are going to want to decide what shape you want for the flap that's going to be showing. I think I actually need to trim this down a bit. So I like to take my closure and just kind of play around by placing it here to get an idea of the placement. I mean, that would not look bad at all to have it all the way over like that, but I think I like it more in the middle, so I'm gonna trim this down a little bit. And I also really like the envelope style where you have the corners kind of cut in like that, but you could totally play around with the shape and do a lot of fun shapes. Like for instance, this one is, you know, a circular shape. Of course it doesn't have the closure, but that would still work, and I love that look. So you decide what you want. So I'm just gonna go ahead and trim this flap down a little bit. I think I'll just trim it about 1 inch in, and then I'll do the envelope style corners. Or do I want to try something different? It might be fun to try something different. Anyways, let's see how we like that. Yeah, I think I like that better. By the way, if you just want to see me adding the closure, you can skip ahead. I'll have timestamps down below for this video. Okay, but I'm just gonna cut kind of a triangle shape off, and I'm gonna take this and flip it bring it down to the other side so I can use this as my guide. And then I'll just do that same shape right here. All right. Now it's time to go ahead and cover this in fabric. And like I mentioned, I personally like to do a couple layers of fabric. And so I'm going to use some muslin fabric first. Make sure when you're measuring your fabric that you do include enough to go on the flap as well. Okay, so I'm going to actually glue this way because it's still gonna work that way. But the reason I'm doing that is because I'm using light colored fabrics and this will show through. Okay, you guys have seen me do this a lot. If you are new, maybe you haven't, but I have a lot of other full journal tutorials, and it would probably be better to start with one of those so that you can get more specific details of the steps. I'll try to link a good one below. I mean, I have a lot of different journal tutorials, but I'm just simply going to cover this entire thing in glue, spread it out with my finger, and then kind of spread out the fabric to get the wrinkles out. And you don't have to iron this before or anything. It will smooth out with the glue. So I like to just kind of go section by section. And so I'm just going to continue doing that until I have the entire piece of fabric glued across the cardboard. Now I'm just going to go ahead and tuck the fabric around the corners, and I trimmed on the corners. I trimmed at an angle right here just to make some nice neat tucks. So I'm just going to add glue and wrap around the sides like this on all four sides. And for the envelope part, I actually cut some slits right here just so that will fold over really nice and tidy as well. So that's something that definitely helps everything so that nothing is like ends up being kind of gathered. Now I'm going to take a second piece of muslin fabric and glue this to the inside. And again, that's just for a little extra durability and because I just really like the feel of a fabric journal. So I'm going to do the same thing, just spread out the glue and then lay this down. Okay, this is obviously, like I said, pretty see-through, but that's fine because I'll be covering this up with probably some paper at some point. Okay, I am trying to breeze through these basic steps because I kind of want to spend more time on the, you know, main part of this video, which is the metal closure. Okay, so now I have my fabric cut out to the size, and once again, I will just be placing this on, or sorry, gluing this on exactly like I just did. I want to make sure that I have this going the correct way. There we go. So I'm just gonna glue in sections once again, wrap the fabric around the edges, and I just wanted to show you that even though now we're gluing right on top of fabric, it's just the same thing. The glue spreads out nicely on this fabric. And by the way, if you're doing a fabric journal and you just want to do one layer of fabric, you totally can. You do not have to do 2 layers like I am. It's just something I've always done, and I just feel like it gives it a little bit more durability along with just a nice texture, really. Okay, I'll be right back after this is glued on. Okay, we have the fabric on. A couple things real quick to mention is that one, I did reinforce the flap here. I put a second piece of the same cardboard right here because I just felt like it was a little too wobbly. The second thing is I did end up sewing around the edges. I feel like my glue is working differently. I normally buy it from Amazon or another office store, and I bought this one at Michael's, and the last 2 bottles just seem like it's balling up like fabric tack or Fabrifix, and it's not holding the same. I'm so curious if the formula could have changed, and I really hope not. But okay, enough of that. Now, if you are making this at home, instead of creasing all of the folds right now, I highly recommend laying it flat with a few heavy books, pretty heavy books, let it dry for at least a few hours, but overnight would be better. And I promise it makes a really big difference on the outcome. And when I'm done here, I'm gonna lay it flat again with some heavy books, but obviously I gotta show you. So once you've let it dry, fold everything. And now you can kind of see what we're working with, and now we can also start to figure out what placement we want for the hardware. Now, Now this one obviously is a 2-piece, so I'm gonna really make sure that I am shutting this journal exactly perfect how you want it to shut when you know you're actually using it. And I'm going to place these kind of somewhere in the middle, and I'm not gonna measure, but you totally can. And you do want to make sure that these are going to line up. So it's actually a good idea to actually like put the closure together depending on what closure you're working with, if you have this one or not. And so I just kind of play around with it, making sure everything's shut. Take your time with this part until you're happy with the placement. And then I like to take a Sharpie, and I use a color that if I do mess up, it's not that big of a deal. So I'm going to use this green color, and you're just going to, there's little holes where the brads are going, and you want to go ahead and just draw a little dot where all of those holes are. So I just go boop, boop, boop. I'm going to get a little closer look. Okay, so I'm just gonna, and I try to do the dot like really even in the center of the hole, if that makes sense. That is where, that one wasn't the center, but that's okay. Sorry if you can see my head. Okay, so now we can go ahead and punch the holes. Okay, I know you can't exactly see on camera, but I'm going to start with this one here. Just pick one of the pieces, poke through. This is just going to make it a lot easier to put those brads in. So I'm going to start with this side right here. And what I like to do first is add glue. And so I'm going to just load this up with a good amount of glue, even around the little circles. And then those holes are really going to be our guides to making sure we place this right. Now you can totally put the other side on again if you want to double check, but I've done this a few times now, and I know that just lining it up with those circles is going to be just all we need to do. Now you're going to go ahead and insert the brads, and I'm just going to poke one through and flip it over and press those prongs down. If you put all 3 brads in and then flip it over, they're gonna fall out and it's gonna be a mess, and you're gonna cry and you're gonna yell at me. Okay, so just go ahead and place all 3 brads. And then we will cover this again so that these brads they're gonna be extra secure, not able to come apart or anything like that. And these are pretty thin, they're not super dimensional or anything like that. Okay, so now that we have that in place, it's time to work with the second one. Now for this one, I do kind of make sure before placing the brads on this side, I am just gonna double check and make sure that everything lines up still, and it does. So we can go ahead and just go ahead and place the brads on this side. Don't forget to add glue again. And then add your center brad. Set it. And these brads, by the way, they did not come, I should have mentioned that earlier, they didn't come with these metal closures. They actually came with nails because I think they're intended for like cabinets. Okay guys, last brad. And once again, we will be covering up these brads, so no worry about them showing. That's why I don't cover the inside yet. And the moment of truth is to just triple check, because if we had to, we could still, you know, change things up. And this is gonna feel a bit weird lining this up, because if you remember, we have one of the sides is up just a teeny bit more than this side, but it still totally works. You just have to wiggle the little lock in there, and there you go. And when you have pages too, everything's gonna hold that in place a little bit better. I love this closure. You'll probably see me using it a ton. If you can see the embossing on it, I really hope you can. It has a really gorgeous style that I think is going to go along with like botanical style books or really anything. But to finish this cover off, I'm just going to take my ring fastener and place it probably right around here, right in the middle at the top, and I will just close those brads up as well. And you are all done with your cover. Now you can add some pages to it, and this journal is just adorable. I hope that this was helpful to you guys, and I hope that you enjoyed it. So I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.